Greetings, loved ones. When children continuously see their parents fight, they many times feel they should come to the rescue of the person who is being abused. However, children are incapable of doing this. Today, we're going to talk more about how domestic violence affects children. But first, help us get these messages out. Our goal, our vision, is that those who are suffering violence will recognize what we're talking about and find a way out of their suffering. But it's also for those who don't suffer violence, because you are going to encounter somebody suffering violence, and we want you to know the signs and how you can help them. So to help get these messages out, please subscribe to our YouTube channel here, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, hit that like button, and please share these messages with others, because you never know, doing so you could save a life. An early childhood educator is responsible for the early teachings of a child in formal education. It is important for them to know the signs and symptoms of a child who comes from families with domestic violence, so they will be able to help the child overcome the challenges that occur when they witness or experience violence. When children experience violence, they feel anxious and powerless. They have to find or develop a coping strategy to deal with their emotions, and many times they use denial as a coping strategy for traumatic situations. Abraham Maslow, in his theory of hierarchy of needs, quotes psychological need as one of the most important needs. Fear is an element of psychological need. When a child sees his parents in constant battles, the child fears that the same may happen to them. A violent partner not only threatens his spouse, but he threatens the family, and the child lives in constant fear. The panic caused from experienced trauma shapes the attitude and the psychological needs of the child. They may feel constantly that their life is threatened and not safe. When only one parent is violent, the child may be feeling threatened by that parent, and ambivalence can set in, and the child begins to take sides in the family. Are they going to decide to side with the father and also be abusive to the mother? Or are they going to side with the mother and try to protect the mother, or whatever? This child will go back and forth between parents because they are not sure who they can trust and why. I'm going to give an example here. So if the child is siding with the father, the child then becomes aggressive against the mother and begins to imitate the father. But if the child is siding with the mother, the child actually feels not rejected, again, I'm having trouble with the words in English because I speak Spanish so much. The child feels like the mother is not protecting them. And so the child is looking at the mother, and they may either try to protect the mother or feel betrayed. That's the word I want. The mother has betrayed them by not protecting them. I know several instances, but I'm going to share one with you. There was a boy, it was actually someone we know. His mother and he were abused by the father, and he was severely abused. He was hospitalized for the abuse that he suffered. And growing up, there was this internal anger against the mother, because rooted in that she didn't protect him. She allowed the father to abuse him. And so growing up, he was always violent against the mother. It's not that he was imitating the father. It was the opposite. It was like he's trying to protect his mother. His mother was not protecting him, and he felt betrayed. This really affects the emotional health of a child. So how can the effect of domestic violence be changed? The effects of domestic violence on children, especially for not directly experiencing abuse, this focus has basically been ignored. The focus has always been about the parties concerned, the husband and the wife, and the effects of violence on children in these families is not talked about and not focused on. Children's issues are only spoken about when direct abuse is occurring in the home. The truth is that children are also affected by domestic violence, whether they are direct victims or not. Experience the abuse of another. Here in Honduras, the law states that if a child is present when there is domestic abuse between the partners, then it is also considered abuse against the child, which then becomes family violence, which in Honduras is a crime. Domestic violence is not. So the effects on children who live in homes with domestic violence can be observed by the way the child preserves life, how they behave. They may have negative attitudes, they can't control their emotions, they might begin to withdraw or become violent. And when parents are fighting, the child suffers in silence. In my mind, I have it pictured that the father is abusing the mother and the children are cowering in the bedroom as they can hear all this violence. This has a profound effect on the child's cognitive development. The child believes that life is not good for them and that they are not safe. We as a society have the burden of needing to understand the effects of domestic violence on children and to create measures to recognize abuse and intervene when we know children are being abused and suffering violence. Between the ages of birth to 6 years, a child is constantly learning things. Their social and emotional characters are developing at this time. And the development of these characters, these characteristics that they have, is influenced by the atmosphere in the home and the presence or the absence of violence in the home. When brought up in a family that experiences violence, the child's social and emotional development is affected. In cases of domestic violence, it is not the victim alone who suffers socially and emotionally, but the children are also affected. What the children observes and lives is registered in their minds and forms their views on life. If the family is undergoing domestic violence, the child's mind will be exposed to violence and will form perceptions and attitudes that reflect violence as the norm. When exposed to violence, children's attitudes, personalities, behaviors, and cognitive development is affected. We need to learn how to recognize when a child is living in violent situations and then know how to step in, stop the violence, and bring help and assistance to the child. The question is not if you will encounter a victim of violence. The question before God is, what will you do when you do encounter them? You could be a person who saves a life. You are called. We are all called to be champions for justice. And those who suffer violence need to know that those who love them and those who don't even know them will step out and reach out to them to give them the courage and the help they need to leave before it's too late. This series is dedicated in honor of Gabby Petito, a bright young woman whom the world has lost because of gender violence. Please check out and support the foundation that her family has created in her honor at gabbypetitofoundation.org. My husband and I are supporting this foundation. If you are a victim of violence, I want you to listen to me. Stop what you're doing and listen to me. I want you to know that you are loved. You are beautiful. You are valued. You are intelligent. God does not want you to suffer in violence. He wants you to live free from violence and peace and tranquility. He wants you to know, and I want you to know, there is a way out of the violence. There is help. Abuse is not love. If somebody is saying they love you and then they abuse you, they are lying to you, and they will never change. If you're a victim of violence, please reach out to somebody and get the help that you need. If you're in an emergency situation, dial 911, and that will bring the help you need. To get these messages out, and that is our only goal, please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a single episode, and you can learn to recognize who is suffering violence and how to help them. Or if you are a victim, you can realize the situation you're in and you can get the help that you need. So follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Hit the like button here, and please share these messages with others, because you never know. Just by doing so, you could save a life. Tomorrow, we're going to continue discussing the effects of domestic violence on children. And until then, God bless you.